this is just, we're just going to start recording, but so I'm sitting here right now, and anybody that's choosing to listen has got a voyeuristic perspective of a conversation that I'm having with two buddies. Jay Brunetti's up in my top left corner, and Dave Kamel is down on the bottom. I don't know where you're seeing me on the screen, guys, but
up left.
Up left. Okay, that's where I am for you. Okay, so this may or may not hit YouTube, but so Jay and Dave are friends of mine. They're my client. I don't know why they keep me around, but I've been working with them for a long time. And today we're here kind of talk about business relationships, partnerships, and you guys have been partners for a long time. So I don't know where this is going to end up, but I want to talk about that. Before I do, Jay and I have done a number of these together. And as a matter of fact, Jay, I should tell you this. Of all the podcasts I've put out with guests, yours about trust and value is still the number one listened to guest podcast. Mine alone still outpace yours, by the way. But number one. So what? No trust, no value, no relationship is number one. So if you haven't listened to it, listen to it. So
I know that pains you to tell me that, but
it kills me to tell you that. But now with Dave here, I think that he's going to
added element. How long is that list of podcasts? If that's on the top, is it a list?
Yeah, is it one of two?
Is it one of two? One of three? I mean, how?
No, it's the only one. Only one.
The only one, and it's tied for second. How is that?
I want to say it's like 66 or 67 that have been out there. So this will be if we decide this is releasable, then this will be among them. But Dave, tell everybody who's listening, the thousands of people out there listening, who you are, real quick.
Who am I? Oh God, I've been in staffing since I had hair, which this is a proof of what it did to Jay and I. Dave, I still don't understand how you have a full coif. So yeah, Jay and I started Hire Alliance in 2004. I run the corporate recruiting side of Hire Alliance. Jay runs the staffing agency side of Hire Alliance. So I get that half, he gets this half, which means for the past year and a half, my half has sucked. His has been great. But yeah, so that's what I've been doing. But Jay and I grew up in the business back in the 90s. That's how long I've known that man. So it's been a fun ride.
Yeah. Well, that's what I wanted to talk about. You guys at some point, let's focus just on the partnership first. What caused you guys to decide you wanted to actually start something together?
Wow.
Well, yeah, it's funny. There was no real grand plan. He was on his own, doing his business. He had left the company a year or so before I did. We both grew up at a company called Contract Solutions in Salem, New Hampshire. Dave left with a couple of guys to start a staffing firm probably a year before I did. And then I left with a couple of guys and started the staffing firm. And then, that was in 2000 time frame. So a few years. And then obviously the market really got clobbered in 01, early 02. And Dave ended up, that partnership kind of broke apart, and he was home doing his own thing. My partnership kind of broke apart, and I was home doing my own thing. And I was doing, the staffing of the staffing industry business. That was my kind of idea, and I was going down that road, and Dave was doing some IT on his own. But 02, 03 was still tough. At the end of 03, and we had been friends. We grew up in the company together. We played golf on the weekends, and we knew each other. And, I was getting really busy. The IT thing was still struggling. And it was as simple as, well, why don't we just I'm busy, man. Come on over and do, get the Hire Alliance thing. Let's combine forces and go at it. A lot of people ask us, we've been together for so long, if there was some strategic plan and some map. It was no, I was busy. He wasn't. We were both at home. Let's get an office and figure it out. And that's kind of how it all started.
Dave, is that true?
It's true, and what's even more true is him convincing me for the first couple of months that other staffing companies was viable, which I still think, I thought back then, that's just dumb, Jay. It's not going to work. Yep. And I hate telling Jay that he's right, but that's it was explosive. I mean, when we started in 2004, every agency we knew was asking us for help. And it's still crazy. I mean, that side of our business is still absolutely crazy, with agencies trying to find people for their teams, because anybody who's watching this isn't staffing industry. You don't go to school for it. Yeah. Finding people that want to do this crazy business has been a challenge forever. And it's even more challenging now than it was back then. It's just hard to find the kids, and Jay and I can say kids because we're old, that 20-something-year-old that wants to get into this business. It's a challenge. So yeah, I quickly believed him that is a viable industry even after we started it. And it's been crazy ever since. And that was back in 2004.
Did you guys expect that the company would work?
I'll say yes, only because I know Jay and I are kind of cut from the same cloth. We don't really believe in failure. We don't believe in starting something that we don't think is going to work. There was never thought in our head that it wasn't going to work? You know,
It was just what was it going to look like?
Yeah, how fast were we going to hire people? Was it always going to be just him and I, which it was for a couple of years, about him and I doing it before we started hiring people to do it with us. So that was probably the biggest question: is when can we start getting a team together? So it's just not him and I staring at each other all day, because that can get boring.
That'd be terrible.
But yeah, there's never. I mean, Jay, tell me, there was never a doubt that it wasn't going to work.
Yeah, I mean, I think, you know, again, if you're going to, Dave Turano, you and I talked about this when you were going off on your own. I think whenever people talk to me and they are asking me my opinion about whether or not they should go on their own, and you know, I listen to what they talk about, and you can tell there's a lot of hesitation in their voice. I always tell them not to, because they approach it as if it's going to be like their next job. You know, there's a lot of people out there that do stuff on their own, and they're like, well, I'll just do this like if I was leaving this company and going to that company. And it's like, it's not. It's like who you are. It's like if you're going to go build a business, that needs to be something that that is you. You know, you don't do it. You don't sign up for it. It's not a class in college. This is what you're going to do. So if that's the case, it was never a failure. It's just like, oh, how are we going to do this? And how's that going to work? How will we make this work? Is this, okay, well, that didn't work. Let's do this. You know, it's a lot of try this, try that. This is good. That's not good. But you're never like, well, all right, we'll give it a month and see how it goes. You know what I mean? It's just like, you're going to keep doing it, making it work. You know, there's no other option.
Right. You know, and you guys have worked with, I'm sure, plenty of your, I know some of your clients, and they've got partnerships, and I know plenty of companies outside your space where you got, you know, partnerships. There's a lot of them that are pretty screwed up. You know, what's interesting, and I said this before we started recording, what's interesting to me about you guys is not the viability of your business and your services and all that stuff. I get that can work. It's been working for years, even before you started. But like, I find that one of the biggest issues inside the companies that I've seen over the years is that the partners are not aligned, or they thought it was a good idea to go into business together, and then they get married and they're like, what the hell did I just do? You know, and I've had to talk people, you know, help them have conversations to move partners out. But what's interesting to me about you guys is I've known you for a long time, and I don't know whether you're pulling the wool over my eyes, but you're able to argue and battle and still get along. It's like you don't want the other guy out. Have you ever wanted each other out?
Well, there's some stuff in the works.
Yeah, that's a private meeting,
yeah.
Dave. If you
no, I'm legally bound to not talk about that. I will say that you bring marriages in. It's the fun joke is, you know, Dave and I have been partners longer than my combined marriages. So for those of you out there, you don't need to know how many, but
I'm Jay's longest relationship.
17 years is longer than the other combined. Hey, I'm catching up.
Jay, this podcast is longer than your combined marriages.
No, it's a long time. Well, you know what it is. From my opinion, I think the thing that helped was that Dave and I came together at the same time. We're the same age. We've got kids that are the same age. We were in the same place in our career. You know, a lot of the partnerships that don't work, there's a difference there. Maybe one partner is much older than the other, and they want different things out of the firm. You know, maybe one's financially secure and the other one is living check to check, and that puts strains on a relationship, right? One partner wants to dump every dime in. The other partner's like, well, I can't do that. So I think, in at least my experience, when the clients I've had that have struggled with the partnership, a lot of it has to do with money and financials and where they are in their lives. You know, so again, it wasn't part of some grand plan or, you know, strategy. We're at the same age. We had the same financial scenario, you know, and that makes it easier so that one's not putting pressure on the other from some different direction. You know what I mean?
What's your take, Dave?
I hate him. No, I mean, it's when Jay and I, when we look back at the years we spent at the agency he and I grew up in back in the mid to late 90s, that was a small little piece of time. But that time still feels longer than he and I have still been in business. It's amazing how, you know, back then, that was only 3 or 4 years at that one agency, and we've been together for, God, we're coming up on, is it 17?
17 years.
17 years. That's stupid. It's amazing that it's been that long. And what we've done in those 17 years. And have we argued? Of course we are. We're both pig-headed pains in the asses, and we're both stubborn, and we both think we're right all the time. But for some reason, the end result of those arguments is something productive. It's something good. It's not bitter, and it's never been, we're not talking to each other for a week. And I couldn't even imagine it going down that road and how unconstructive that would be for the company or for the team. You know, and he's right. Where we are in our lives, you know, his number of wives compared to my one aside.
That may be different.
the amount of the kids we have and what we're doing financially, what we're trying to do in his house in Goffstown, my house in it is very much like this as far as where we are in our lives, age-wise, experience-wise, frustration-wise. Everything is right here, which makes the arguments are sometimes silly little arguments we have, but we always end up in a good place at the end saying, all right, you're right, I'm right, whatever it is, let's get over it.
I had one of the employees asked 2 days ago if we fight. I almost like spit my salad up and laughed and rolled around on the floor. Like, we fight. Like, what do you mean fight? Like fist fight? Like fix a dude? Like, and I'm like, well, yeah. I mean, we don't fight. We just, we have different opinions, and we're both fiery dudes, right? So, if I feel strongly one way, he feels strongly another. We'll have our initial kind of reaction to that. It calms down, and then we'll come back to it. A few hours later to figure out what really makes sense. But it is. I mean, you can't have a partnership without having. We're not robots. We'll get different opinions on how we should do things. There's stuff that's more important to me. There's stuff that's more important to Dave. So we just, you got to battle your way through it. I think partnerships get in trouble when they don't do that. When they don't challenge each other, they just let it go. Then one feels resentment, and 3 years down the line, it just is a big blowout. You know what I mean? Because they're not able to talk about it each time.
Yep. And nothing in this past year, since March of last year, what partnerships have not been tested by what the hell's been going on? And ours, specifics between about our partnership, especially with this COVID thing, we've had to learn how to do things separate. I mean, I've seen him physically probably 4 times since last March. I'm home. I've got a kiddo. My son has cerebral palsy, so his immune system is not the best. So I've had to take a completely different stance than Jay on this COVID shit. We've had to be much more careful, and we've got to make sure we're exposed to and tests and the social distancing and wearing masks. Our world has been turned upside down since last March because he can't get sick. He gets sick. He gets this COVID. It's not just, okay, let's give him some NyQuil and he'll be fine. So we've known that since March, and Jay has known that. And, Jay knows, okay, Camellas have got to be careful. They've got to stay home. He's probably not going to come in until this vaccine, whatever. And I've been in and we've seen each other. But knowing that, Jay's world is completely different. Jay, we've had the office back open. We've had a skeleton crew. We've let people kind of come and go. But it's never been outward friction between him and I saying, oh, shit, you're stuck at home. You can go in the office. This isn't going to work. We've made it work.
Right.
I mean, again, thank God this isn't 1990 before Zoom and Skype. I mean, forget it. Who the hell knows what would be happening? But because we can still communicate like this, the partnership has not taken a hit because of what happened back in March and because of COVID. Because of the shutdown last March and what's been going on ever since, he and I aren't frustrated and at each other's throats. We've made it work. And we've made it work seamlessly. It's not like we're like, oh, we really need to try. No, it just is what it is. I have to be home worried about the kid. He can do a little bit more than I can. That's okay. What are we doing with the business? It's not how are he and I getting along. We're getting along fine. What's going on with the team? What's going on? How do we manage the team through a recession? How do we manage these kids that have never been through a recession before? They weren't working in 2008-9. They definitely weren't alive in 2001. So what do they know about recession? What do they know about working from home? That's been the biggest challenge for him and I, more than I'm at home and he's not. So it's the partnership, as far as what we've had to do for the past 10, 9, 11 months, whatever it's been, we've had to learn how to do this, not face-to-face. But it hasn't hurt it. In my opinion, it hasn't hurt it. Maybe Jay has other opinions.
No. Yeah, no, I mean, it's just because, again, these things, again, when you compare it to other scenarios and other partnerships that you were talking earlier, Dave, about, this guy wants to push out this guy or this, it still comes down to the same stuff we talk about in any of the relationships. Our mantra with Higher Alliance is trust and value, right? All we talk about, trust and value. Well, that goes with the partnership too, right? There has to be trust, and there's going to be value out of both ends. Like, if I'm sitting around doing nothing, like if I'm going to the office all day and not doing anything, or Dave's home all day or he's not doing anything, the value is going to suffer, right? Or if we don't trust that each other's doing the right things, then that's going to get, so just because, we talk about trust and value all the time, the reason why that's important to me is, I think it's the basis of any good relationship, but we've got to have it too. We can't be talking about it and tell everyone to go have it. And then him and I are like, well, I mean, of course Dave's not coming in because he's watching Oprah all day. That's not the thing. And I think a lot of those partnerships that struggle, someone's not holding up their end of the bargain, And that's the thing. Is it equal every year? If we go back through the 17 years, it's not like him and I are, doing the exact same thing at the exact same level, at the exact same time. There's been years from a production standpoint. We're still very close to the business from a production standpoint, from our, our size, where Dave's killed it and I've lagged way behind. There's been times where I've killed it and Dave's. I bet you if you added it all up, 17 years later, it'd probably be pretty close. Because the way the years go, you kind of can't control a lot of that sometimes. But we both know we're always on. You know what I mean? Like unless we're both on a vacation, like if he's on a vacation, I'm on vacation. But even vacations, he's had like one in 20 years. Me, I've gone on one that my phone is never, my wife's yelling at me because there's an email and I'm like, well, hold on, honey, let me just, you just don't shut it off, And I think that piece of it is we're just constantly going, and we both recognize that how many emails and texts do we get? 11 o'clock on a Wednesday night. I'll be like, oh, and he'll be like, yep, 3 bubbles coming back. You know what I mean? There's just always going to be that piece of it. So if you don't have the trust and the value in the relationship with the partners, yeah, those places are doomed.
And I'll tell you, nothing can make more stress for the partners or the owners of the company than the employees or us stressing out about what the employees are doing. And again, the past 10 months, we have been lucky. Well, we've been lucky even longer than that, but we are lucky that he and I are not babysitting the team that we have. The trust and value and trusting that they're doing their work and they're trying to work and plow through this recession and they're trying to plow through work this pandemic. They all are. And knowing that, it doesn't necessarily make his and our life easier, but the stress isn't there. Oh, who's working? Who's watching Oprah? Who's watching The Price is Right? We've never, ever thought they're not working from home. We've never had to go down the babysitting route of we got to open the office because if they're not in the office, they're not working. We never said that. We wanted to get the office open because it's a better environment and everyone loves to go and it's fun to do that in a staffing agency. But we never thought we've got to open this soon because someone's not being productive, which has been a huge.
It's about the coaching.
It's about the coach. But that having that stress not exist is easier for him and I, as partners. Then we're not at each other's throats projecting anger about what the team's doing. The team's doing their best, and that helps us.
Have you always thought that, though, when you started to bring in people? Did you always have, granted, they weren't working from home. Did you ever have doubts in people putting in an honest day's work?
Yes. I'm not going to lie. Jay and I get compared at least 5 times a year to the old guys that are sitting up in the balcony in the Muppets. That's what we get compared to all the time. And that mindset is from us built, in the business back in the 90s. If you weren't working in the office, you were home watching The Price is Right. You were home in your jammies, not doing a friggin' thing. That's in our DNA because we're old. It's completely, not only these past 10 months, even before that, we know that's not the case. And we have to believe that. If we don't believe that, then we're dead. We have to believe that people want to work, they're motivated, give them the right tools, and they'll do it. If somebody's home right now and they don't want to work, they're hurting themselves, right? In a sales environment. But him and I cannot spend days or mental energy thinking, who's at home right now not working?
Yep. Yeah, and we've gotten better at that. That's evolved over the time. You know what I mean? Like that was certainly early on. We came from an environment that was that way, right? They were old school staffing firm that if you weren't, dialing the phone every 3 seconds, you weren't working, that kind of thing. So it's time for us to get there, and it took time for us to hire the right people that could do that. You know what I mean? Like I think early in Hire Alliance's career, we probably hired more of the people that fit what would have fit where we were at Contract Solutions, and then that didn't work. Like, we were too much focused on watching every move, or are they doing this the right way, or are they doing it at all? And I think that's probably one of the pieces where we've evolved the most. I think 2010, Dave and Jay would not be happy about this work from home thing. I think we've evolved to a point where we did turn it on, and I don't at all worry about any of our guys or gals working. I worry about, again, like I said, the coaching piece. Like I think what we really miss is those calls in the moment when you can hear a conversation for the rookies and the young kids, and you can then really right then hear it, address it. We've got the ability to monitor in the office. I can jump on and hear. We lose some of that when everyone's home. And that's why I think the folks in the office tend to be the ones who are still newer in the business because they know they need that too. And it's good for me because I can get in there and I'm working with them and I can hear them, and it makes a big difference. But it's not because we don't think they're working. I just worry that they're saying they're not saying the right things, or they're getting caught in the conversation and they don't have enough ammunition, in the gun.
Right. Well, one of the things when I first met you guys, and I think about like how I run my business, and it's probably going like 19 years. My entire business has been on the cell phone. And once BlackBerries were introduced and I had access to email and a cell, and I figured out I can be anywhere at any time working, that's when my business exploded, back when I was in the staffing world. And it's never not been a cell phone driven business. But I do remember first time I came up to your place and you guys were more, I know you were critical of that, not with me, but with some of your folks that, they're making these calls from the cell phones. Do you have a different thought on that, or do you still feel the same way?
No, I mean, Jay, for us to evolve, how was it, 3 years ago, for us to get the software Text Us? Remember that, Jay? Remember that? That was kind of Jay and I giving up on counting phone calls and worrying about now it's more of, because you're not reaching people by the phone anymore. You are a little bit, but now it's this, right?
Yeah,
how savvy can you be in a
depending
text?
on who they are.
Yeah, but I mean, we cannot, again, old school is let's count phone calls. Let's have contests around how many phone calls they make. No, that's 10 years ago.
Yep.
It's just not now. And to sit, if people are not on the phone, they're not working. That's an easy mentality to have a long time ago.
I will say this, the only, the good thing about the in-office phones is the ability to monitor, and that's why I was saying when we get on, I'm like, I don't even know why we have phones anymore. We've got 20 big phones with lots of numbers and, transfer and this, that, and the other thing on it. And I'm like, why do we have these things? Everyone's got AirPods, they put them in, they could get the phones. We probably could get rid of them and figure out a way to do the coaching and save whatever we would save on phones. And I've got clients that are doing that. I've got clients who are now, all their phones are through their laptops, the soft phones on the laptops. They just plug in, get a headset that goes into the thing, and that's their phone. They don't have desktop phones anymore. So it's stuff like that. Again, the coaching piece, like if there's some way to, the iPhone will figure out a way to monitor calls. I'm sure that's coming down the pipe. We'll be able to get rid of them entirely. You know what I mean? But yeah, it's definitely different.
Well, this COVID's also, Jay, we know clients that have given up their offices, and just gone fully remote. Said, screw it. Why spend the money on the lease every month? Which I can see them doing that. Jay and I just, the office setting is just too much. I'll say fun, but the camaraderie and what goes on, and we'll get back there someday. Will we ever get back to everybody in the office every day of the week? Who knows? And we're not, and Jay and I are not putting things in plan saying, okay, by Labor Day of 2021, everyone's back in 24/7. Let's go. We have no idea.
Let me ask you this: just you guys have been Dave. You've been completely remote since March, right?
Yeah, I have.
Okay,
Jesus, that was a year.
And so, and then during that process, I don't think you guys had no new people came in once COVID hit, right? Everybody was in prior.
Right. Everybody. The best part to brag about is everybody that was there when we were on lockdown is still there. We haven't added. We had people in the loop to interview those few months, and we put everything on hold. And Jay brings it up, is because coaching remotely or onboarding somebody remotely can be done, but back then we're like, let's just see where this thing's going. Before we break. But yeah, we have not added anybody since the lockdown.
I can tell you, just in my world, talking to people over the last year it's evolved in that the conversations have become much more personal. I think people are just, not everything is about work. And I know you guys, I've been to your houses. Like I know you personally, but I would say that early on the conversations were more work related. And now it's both. Although Dave, I hadn't seen you in a long time. We started Zooming a couple of weeks ago, but have you, the reason I bring it up is, have you had to think about your team in a different way than maybe you did in the past?
Yeah, well, we've had to.
Like in terms of like the size of the team or the dynamics, or just them in general?
Just them. When you get somebody coming to the office every day and you're interacting with them and you're seeing them, you develop certain habits and you get used to certain things, and things feel normal to some extent. And then you throw this into what has happened over the last year into the equation.
Yeah, again, the precedent of a recession is easy for Jay and I to train somebody through or teach somebody through or coach somebody through. Right? It's easy to say, okay, this is what it's like in a recession. This is the grind. Change how you do things. Change how you recruit. Change how you sell. Because we had to do it 5 years ago, 10 years ago. This is a recession plus. Okay, now you have to do this, but you also do it from home, and you have to do it from home alone. Some of the people we have working for us, they don't have families, they don't have whatever. They're sitting in their apartment alone doing this. And that was, one of our employees, Erin. I don't know how she did it. A 20-something-year-old doesn't want to work from home and sit there by themselves. So Jay and I have had to become shrinks a little bit and finding out what the mindset is of and trying to keep their spirits up. And keeping people's spirits up all last year was not easy. The information was all over the place. COVID is this, COVID is that. Tests work, tests don't work. Wear a mask, don't work. All of this information that was all jumbled, plus a recession, plus trying to get everyone motivated. Jay and I have never seen this before. And no one knew what they were doing. Jay and I couldn't fall back and say, we did this 10 years ago, remember? No. We were winging it the best we could, and our team knew that. It's not like they were looking at Jay and I as oh God, they have every answer. Jay and I told them all that we don't know what's going to happen here, but let's try this. We know this is it, but let's just keep our chin up. Let's just keep going. We didn't want to fake it and say, this is going to be fine. No, we were honest with them throughout the whole, but making sure we understood what their mindset was all about and how they are. Some are still struggling, and Jay and I had to put out the couch and say, lay down, let's talk about you before. I don't care what your production was last week. Where's your head at? How are you? And
I think the other thing is the communication is really difficult now, right? So you took a year ago at this time, January 22nd, 2020, we were all in the office. We were there every day. And all of our processes in the organization were set up for that kind of profile, right? So now you fast forward a year and we never have the team in the office at once. The folks that do come in, again, Dave said it's a skeleton crew, right? But we never have the entire team in all at the same time. So what does that mean? It means that we've got to communicate differently. Things that we naturally would have just heard, with this candidate and that client, and, we would have been in the office all at the same time, that information that you'd hear. Now we've got to make sure, we've got to go out of our way for the person who's not in the office and the two that are, we got to make sure the person that's not in the office is updated on all this stuff. And that's been a challenge for us. I mean, because we're so used to communicating in the moment, and I stand up and say one thing and 7 people hear it. That doesn't exist anymore. I got to, I stand up, say, and 2 people hear it, and then I got to figure out how to make sure the other 5 hear it. And if you're not consciously thinking of that, the people that aren't in the office can feel left behind, isolated. So we really got to focus on that.
All right, so I got to ask you this. I noticed this with every client. Like some of them have hired throughout this period of time, and some have done an okay job getting new people up to speed, and some of them are struggling getting people up to speed. There's the teaching of the job. I know you guys you didn't have to do that because they were already in, but you got to teach them how to do the job in order for them to survive at home. There's that piece. So you get that. But beyond that, once somebody knows the job, there's no guarantee that they're going to get it done. Mm-hmm. And you guys keep talking about communication. I know for a fact that both of you are relentless about like follow up and follow through, sense of urgency. It's nauseating. And I'm the same way. So I love it. I freaking love it. But I would guess that not everybody thinks this way. Do you ever have to deal with that stuff? Think about, they're at home. You can't see them in the same way. You trust that they're working, but I'm sure you have a certain expectation around quick response, right?
Yeah.
How do you instill that in people? Or do you take the time to do that? Or did you not and forget about it? I'm just curious.
I don't think you can instill it in people. I think they either have it or they don't, right? I mean, it's tough to teach urgency. I think you can interview for it, and you can try to find people that are naturally urgent. It's typically competitive people. We all know what we're looking for, that have that urgent gene to get things done. And fortunately, again, I mean, the team we have right now, urgency is not a problem. They all, when they need to get things done, they get it done. If I need to reach any of them, I mean, we had one of our employees who was, just getting through like a cold, not COVID, no COVID, but a cold. There's still colds out there and flus that aren't COVID, but didn't feel good this week, in the middle of the week, and still had a pretty productive week. Was still making phone calls, was still, doing things, probably was taking some rest in between, but isn't zero, didn't do anything. So, and there was some stuff that needed to be done, and she got it done because it needed to be done. So the urgency piece isn't a problem. I think that from a communication, it's sometimes out of sight, out of mind. If 4 of us are in and 4 of us are out, it's easy to forget about the 4 that are out, and that's just because for so long we've existed with, there's never 4 out.
Yeah.
There's always 8 in, and if the one's out, they're out for half a day, and then they will be in. And there's no, like, you don't have to set a protocol up for like how to make sure we're communicating. We've had to change some internal process so that it makes it easier for whoever's in and whoever's out to know what's happening with their clients and their candidates. That's the piece of the nuts and bolts part of the job. That's really, I think, for me, been the biggest challenge. Is it's not them working hard, it's not their urgency, it's the speed of communication, right? When you're all in one place, that communication is lightning. When there's 4 people in 4 different places, it just takes more time to get the message out. I am you. You're on the phone. You call me back. Dave Turano, you and I went back and forth 5 times today. I called you at 9. We didn't talk until 1:20. If we both worked in the same office, we would have talked at 9:08. And that's what we're dealing with everybody. Multiply that by 5, and that's a real struggle. My phone's rung twice since I've been here. On the Zoom, if we were doing this in the office, no one would call me because they know I'm doing this.
Right.
And that's what we struggle with, I think, the most, really.
Dave, any thoughts?
Yeah, I mean, it's funny how we take for granted the people that are there, how that's just one thing we don't have to worry about. Again, you just think of, do we have to worry about that person caring about getting feedback or getting back to that candidate or getting back to that client? We know that they're going to do that because that's just what's in them. It's already in their DNA to do that. They know what their goals are, and they know what they have to hit, and they know what they need to do as far as work-wise. They know what they want to hit for the quarter or for the month. In order to do that, they have to act a certain way. Not because Jay and I are forcing them to, because they know that's what the job is, and it's interviewing for that for any agency, getting somebody on board that you hope still has that. Yeah, there's a bunch of interview questions. Sometimes you don't know until they're sitting there for X amount of days saying, okay, perfect. Oh God. Okay. Nope. We're going to have to push this one a little harder than we thought. You sometimes don't know. And the ones that we had, the team we have in place right now, that's just one thing that Jay and I, again, are, we're putting our head in the pillow at night, not worrying about, oh God, is she getting back to that manager right away? Of course she is. She already did. We don't have to worry about that. So, but it's doing all that remotely. Like Jay said, that's been the challenge.
Have you guys ever had a difference of opinion about what it takes to be successful during the hiring process, where you want one person and the other guy doesn't?
Yeah, we've had different opinions. I mean, I think we don't have, I'm sure our interview process isn't the best. It's not the worst. It's in the middle, in terms of how we identify talent. And there's certain things I look for. There's certain things Dave looks for, and have we hired people? Let's put it this way. We've hired people that I've wanted, Dave didn't, vice versa. And some have worked out and some haven't. We've hit all 4 quadrants. We've had someone I really wanted, Dave didn't, has worked out, hasn't worked out, and the same on his end. So we've hit all 4 boxes. That's just going to keep happening. I mean, I think, there's no bad hires. There's just keeping bad hires too long, right? We know we're going to make a bad hire here or there. It's impossible not to. But it doesn't have to be, it doesn't have to be a wrestling match with him or I. It's usually if we're 49-51, if we're like on the fence one way or on the fence the other, we'll generally make the decision together. You know what I mean? But if I'm like 99% convinced and he's like on the fence, we'll hire them. And same thing. If he's really convinced and I'm kind of like, I don't know, we'll hire them. Because we feel strongly about it. And we've both been doing this a long time. And it's just because I don't see it doesn't mean there's something that he feels that we can do. And the good news is we'll take that chance. Like I said, sometimes it's worked out great, sometimes it hasn't. But I don't think that'll ever change.
And the 3 of us know we're in an industry where it's not black and white. What you hire is going to make it. Staffing, it's a sales environment. There are other industries that have the same thing, but we are in a specific industry where you don't know sometimes. You can check references, you can shadow, you can have a day of come on in the office and make some fake calls and see what it's like. You don't know until maybe 2 or 3 months in on what you have. So, he and I don't like to overthink a hire either. If we're close, then yeah, let's take a flyer. Let's bring this person in, see how they get along. The team, we definitely have the team's input before we hire somebody because they're going to be working amongst the team for 40 hours a week. Mm-hmm. So we use the team's opinion. But no, he and I have never had battles over, you're an idiot, we should have hired that somebody. We battle about other stupid things, but not that. So.
If somebody doesn't make it, do you guys ever feel like it's on you? Like, how do you feel if somebody just doesn't cut it? Your responsibility, their responsibility, both?
Being attacked by my cat. Hold on.
What is that?
It's a mountain lion. He has a mountain lion for a pet.
That's a good question. I mean, I think it depends on why, someone doesn't make it, right? I think if it's someone that's got the talent and we didn't get them there, we didn't do the right things and set them up to succeed, that feels bad. And that's happened. We've lost some people. There's some folks that we probably, could have done some different things sooner and they might still be here, right? Correct me if I'm wrong, Dave, but I can only count that on one hand in the 17 years of people that I look back and go, yeah, if we would have done this or this, they may still be here, and we're pretty bummed that they're not. It's five or less.
Jay and I get, if somebody leaves us and goes to work for another staffing firm, then that's on us. We think it's on us. Why? What didn't work? If they're going to a different industry where whatever didn't, that's when Jay and I will dissect what did we do wrong. We've had, and Dave, you've known them, a lot of people that have left us and gone out of staffing have gone and done something else. Maybe they went corporate, which is, good. You evolved, you went to the corporate side. So it's when they leave us and if they go to another staffing firm, that's when Jay and I will take that personally and say, what did we do wrong? Yep. But there have been more than just a handful of people that have left us and gone someplace else. Because we may have been their first staffing job. And they came to us and they realized staffing's not what we want. Okay, fine. Hugs and kisses. Go do something else. Go do something you're passionate about. Staying here longer than you want is not going to do anything for anybody. Leave.
Two things that we talked about this before we started recording, but you guys are unique to me. I've had the opportunity to work with a lot of different companies inside the staffing world and outside the staffing world. And when people leave a company, sometimes there are companies where people leave and they're just happy to have been there. And it was a great experience, but that's not always the case. And what I find interesting about you guys is I know some of the people who have moved on. I know them, you know them. The crazy thing is they come back. They don't come back to work, but they come back as friends. They come back to your holiday parties. They go to your houses. You invite them to your wedding. You know what I mean? Like this. I think that's fascinating. Most people, at least all the people that I've ever met that have worked in your organization, I've never heard them leaving with a bad taste in their mouth. They might not have been psyched, but they still look back on the experience and the relationship as it was a good one. And that's what I think is interesting. And I don't think that's normal. I guess
I don't know if it's normal or not. But for us, I think part of that's because, if someone leaves and it's our choice, it's never a surprise to them. And if someone leaves and it's their choice, it's really not a surprise to us. And again, it comes back to the communication piece.
Right.
You know what I mean? And I think if you're, again, value and trust, right? It's also with the internal employees. It's going to be with everybody, right? It starts with Dave and I, and then it's the internal employees, and then it's with our relationships with the clients and candidates. But you're going to have it internally. So I think, we're two pretty transparent cats, and I think people respect that. And we also recognize, and I think this might be unique. We recognize that, Higher Alliance isn't the place for everybody. And it actually might not be the place for most people. We've got a specific niche. We do it a certain way or not. We don't look and feel like most firms. And that won't work for a lot of people. And sometimes it takes time to come in and realize that. And that's okay. You know what? And if it doesn't work, it doesn't work. As long as we're communicating along the way and people recognize what's working and what's not, that's why I think people come back, because we didn't fire them at midnight in the cloak of darkness and then never talk to them again. They didn't quit on us the same way. And when they did, there was probably tears because they really wanted to work, because they like us and they respect how we do it, but it's just it's not the right thing. Okay, it's okay. And I think when you treat people with respect that way, which seems simple, Dave, but a lot of companies don't do this. But if you just treat your people with respect and you talk them through what their goals are, and if this doesn't help them get to the goals, then go do something else. I'll be the first one to talk to them and say, look, I mean, what you want to do and what we are, those are different things. And I think it's simple, but that's why people, will take our calls if we call them.
And that open communication makes those painful laying off, departure conversations, I'll say, easier, because it's not an out of the blue thing. Very, very rare. Anybody that's left us, I don't know how many have been blindsided, saying, I didn't see that coming. It's just not, we're too open with everybody, talking to them about, okay, this is production, this is what's going on. So when you do sit down and have that not fun conversation, it's more of a, yeah, I agree. I've been here for an extra month because I just like coming here. Well, that's nice to hear, but you haven't been wanting to do the job for the past month. And Jay and I have heard that probably 5 times. as far as people that have stayed a little longer because they like coming to the office.
Yeah.
Yay, that's good.
That's,
But
I mean,
that's not what we want to hear. But so those
that's the thing.
conversations.
I think also people have left and they've gone on and they've done and been very successful in
Right.
the other things they've done. And so I think we like to take pride in the fact that we help them figure out what they don't want to do. That's okay. If we're part of that journey for them, and we in a respectful way, in a supportive way, help them figure out that what we do is not what they want to do, and now they're killing it doing something else. That's great. Like I think that's wonderful to me, and I think there's a lot of people out there that want everyone that leaves their firms to crash and burn. You know what I mean? It's like Tom Brady leaving New England and going to Tampa, and the people that are really, maybe not they're too loyal to the organization want him to crash and burn because it makes them. No. I want Tom to do great. We helped him get to where he is now, and if he has another win, if I'm Bill or Kraft, I'm like, we helped him get there. We can't be like, I hope he breaks his leg tomorrow or Sunday. You know what I mean? So I think we treat the people the same way, and that's why there's always a mutual respect there. I think that's part of the environment. It's the draw, and what Dave was just saying. I think sometimes maybe people stay a little longer because they feel like it's kind of fun and it's great and they feel good and it's the best place they've worked to them, but it's not the best job for them. Like that's the difference. You know what I mean?
The other thing you guys tend to do, not always, but I've seen you take people who know nothing about what you do and you still hire them and you develop them. And not that you haven't hired industry people before, you have, and they've worked too, but a lot of the companies in your space, specifically on your side, Jay, they're just recycling people. I mean, I see some companies just collecting staff from other companies, and you guys don't do that. Is there a reason? Is that just the plan, or is that just how it's played out?
Well, I mean, Jay, it was 750,000 years ago, but Jay and I, when we were 24, didn't have experience in this. And the agency that he and I started at, that's what they did. I don't think anybody in those organizations back then that John McLaughlin owned back in the day, all of them were non-industry sales kids that didn't even know what a headhunter was. Yep. And you learned how to do it, the old-fashioned way with phone books and stuff like that. So that's in our brains. And okay, if you can bring somebody in that's got a good sales background that wants to learn this industry, let's bring them in. That's how we were brought up a long time ago. So.
Yeah, because again, it's about the skills and the attributes and how they're wired is much more important. Like, we don't, I think without going down the whole, talking about our clients and what their strengths and weaknesses are, but I think a lot of firms fall in love with what they think their candidates, their new hires can bring. Oh, they can bring these clients or they can bring these candidate relationships, right? Yeah. Well, we're not going to find anyone that's going to bring any staffing. There's no one else that does what we do, right? So we're not hiring people for their experience in staffing the staffing industry, right? There's no one else that does that, and there's only a small group of companies that do it, and a lot of them are not local. So, but we wouldn't hire for that even if we did, because we want people to have the right skills and more attributes, right? The skills can be taught. The attributes, just the internal drive that we talked about, urgency, value, and trust is also important. They have to be genuinely interested in people. We get that, and we could take it. I mean, our employee of the year this last year, when she came to us, she didn't sell anything ever, right? So had some jobs that looked like could match up, competitive, athletic, played sports, did all the other things, that we just talked about, and 2.5, 3 years later, in employee of the year. So I think we can, it's just easy for us to hire folks and get them up to speed, because the other part of it, you immediately are recruiting what you do. So there's a relatability from day one, right? Once we teach them and say, look, I'm a recruiter now, going to call other staffing professionals. It's like a dentist calling dentist. I can immediately relate to you. We're not doing IT, which can get complicated. And there's a lot of life sciences. There's all these terms and words, and it may take a long time for people to understand them. We don't have that. I mean, it's not really hard to understand what recruiting is. I can teach someone that in a day. So right. I think it's more about the people and their attributes and what drives them.
Yeah, I would agree. I would agree. I think you're just looking for the human being. I mean, in my experience with you guys, it's what kind of human being is this? And I don't think you guys can stop yourself from telling the truth. Dave, and I mean, I've known both of you for so long, but it's like you can't not say what's on your mind.
Yeah, I know. It's a problem.
No, it's not. No,
I've
no,
been married a bunch of times, Dave. I mean, what do you want me to tell you?
no, but I think that's really important, is like we can't hide from what needs to be talked about. If your performance isn't what it needs to be, I'm not going to be angry at you. I'm not going to, browbeat you, but we're going to talk about it.
I mean, Jay and I have joked and been frustrated and laughed at. I mean, for 17 years, we're on the floor. We're in their face. We're not, and not in a bad way. We're not babysitting. We're not standing over their desk, making sure that they're doing what they're doing. We're just part of their day. We own clients that they're placing people at. We represent recruiters. We represent candidates that we're placing people to. We are very much in the business. We're not as removed as maybe two 50-year-old partners should be, but we have fun doing it. So we're in their day to day, and we help them and we coach them, and we're part of it. So we're living it. So that open communication back and forth, it's not sometimes not boss employee. It's just coworker. It's like, your person's at my client. Where's the feedback? It's not, I'm demanding that because I'm your boss. I'm the account executive. Give me some stuff. And we've been living that for 17 years. And I joke to her, and I'll say this out loud, Jay and I've joked, when I'm 35, I'm not running a desk. That didn't go over well. When I'm 40, I'm not running a desk. When I'm 51, which is in a month, I'm not running a desk. It's bullshit, right? And staffing partners live that, and unless you get to a large agency where you're up here and you're not doing that, most agencies we know, the partners are in it. And he and I are very, very much in it. And for a long time, we're going to be in it.
But are you in it for the money?
Yeah. I mean, we're gonna lie. If let's put it this way: if I said no, then our team would be like, "What did you just say?" Because I mean, a staffing organization is a sales organization. You can't make that up. It's treating it like a number. Treating it like a digit, treating it like that. And that's where we've lost people. When we bring people in that are from the transactional, fast contract agencies that don't do it on a more consultative type level, when they come into our agency and they see how we do it, which might be a little slower process, they're like, no, I just want to make deals. I just want to make deals. I want to place this guy every week. We've had somebody come in from a contract agency and they didn't make a placement in the first 2 weeks and they were breaking out in hives. It's like, oh my God, Dave and Jay are going to get mad. Like, no, we're not. Slow down. It's more of a consultative approach.
Yep.
So, but in the end, it's still a fee sales business.
Right.
So, he and I are going to be multimillionaires someday. Well, yeah, we got Mega Millions is coming tonight, right? I mean, that's $900 million. That's going to happen.
Yeah.
Well, it depends on what the time frame is for that multi-million thing. I mean, depending on how long you add up the time that you've been on the earth. Yeah, I mean, I think money's look, money's a big piece of this. I mean, we're not doing it for free. If we just sat here and people say, well, it's not about the money, then why don't we run a nonprofit? Clearly, we want to run a profitable business that makes money that we can support our families, that we can do. And there's a number of ways to do it. And, I made the mental decision, a long time ago that I'm someone that needs to believe in what I'm doing. I grew up doing the IT thing and I just didn't think I could add any value. I don't like tech. You and I just talked about this, Dave, about just when things go haywire. Like I just get so frustrated with technology. I want to just shut it all down. Dave knows all too well. So I read the buzzwords and matched it to the job order and sent the guy over. And I just remember like, this sucks. Like, why am I doing this? I'm adding no value at all. Like, I don't even know what these words mean, And so when I started thinking about starting this business, it really was because I felt like I was alone in this world of staffing, had no one to talk to. And so then that's where the idea came from, where like, okay, well, where's my recruiter? I don't even know if I like this job. And I have no one to talk to about it. And that's just the simple idea of how Hire Alliance became what it is. So for me, doing this, the big question is, so you win, Mega Millions tomorrow and you got $100 million, would you still go to work? I'd still do this. I wouldn't do it as much. I wouldn't spend as much time in the office, but I'd still do it, because I believe in the story, and because it's my story. It's like, this is what I went through. So I still believe there's people out there that need our help, and that need someone that they can talk to that can help them navigate their career. Right. So I'd still do it. If someone said, hey, I'll give you $1 million to sell paper clips, I wouldn't do it. I would never do it long enough to make the $1 million because I'd get bored to tears selling paper clips. There's no value there. You know what I mean?
Yeah. I think obviously money's critical. I mean, you're not going to do it unless you get paid to do it. But I think that the purpose is what drives you on top of that. You've got to want to do it. You've got to believe in what you do.
And part of that, and the proof behind that is Jay and I walk away from clients, deals, situations where that's not gonna. Why put the team through that? Why waste the team's time? It's just no. If the partnership isn't there with the clients or something's not working out with the candidate, and that's when Jay and I will talk to one of our employees and see what's going on. Walk away.
Oh, guys,
it's not worth the headache.
Yeah. There are clients. I've got great relationships, even with companies that I don't work with anymore. There are a couple though, I'm relieved not to be working with them. It's liberating. I would trade the money all day long, not to deal with the headache of the dysfunction.
Are you breaking up with us now? Is this where we're done?
Guys, let me just say this off the subject. I know this is being recorded. There are a couple bald eagles in my town. One just flew over my house. I have never seen one fly over my house in my life. And I'm so fascinated by it. But while that was happening, it just flew back, and I'm still paying attention to you. So,
that's fantastic.
I just want you to know that. All right. We don't have to, this is the reason I wanted to do this. And I told you this up front is just, I'm trying to provide just a casual image into what three business owners talk about in our spare time. So before we wrap it all up, any advice you would give to anybody else in a partnership, if they wanted advice on how to make it work, or things absolutely not to do, lessons learned, anything that you think people should know who might be struggling with their partner?
Well, I mean, I guess my advice on the front end is if before the partnership starts, I'd make sure you're aligned on your personal goals and where you want to, like that conversation has to happen. Sometimes people fall in love with the idea and they both have some ownership of the idea, and then that's all they talk about, and then they go. If they don't communicate around, well, where do you need to be, and what's your perception, in terms of like personal financial goals, and what do you want to do with this, and how long do you want to do it? A lot of folks don't talk about that on the front end. That becomes a nightmare. So on the front end, do that. If you're already in a partnership, I still think it, again, for me, it's just simple, man. It's trust and value. And I don't know that you can't fix that. Like the trust piece, you can't fix. If you don't trust that your partner's doing what they're supposed to be doing, then you've got some big problems, and you probably should figure out a way to end it. The value part, that you could probably figure out. And that's where, in my experience, where the partnerships start to fall apart is one, or, however many there are, one of them's not holding their weight. They're not doing it anymore. They're not showing up as much. They're showing up at 10, they're leaving at 2, and they take a 2-hour lunch. It's like, and the other two partners are killing it every day. It's as simple as that. You know what I mean? It normally comes down to there's something fractured in the value piece. The trust part is probably there. They wouldn't have been partners to begin with. So they trust each other, but they don't value that this person's not working as hard as the rest of us. And then I would hit that conversation straight on, because that's the other thing is, I think, just like we spent 30 minutes talking about, that's one of those like tough conversations, and people avoid those things like the plague. No one wants to have it. You've got to have it. You've got to lay it out and say, this is what I'm feeling, and this is what it looks like. We got to talk about this. And if you don't do it, it's going to fester and just be this real hard thing to then overcome, and then it's going to end in a fiery car crash.
And the team sees it. I mean, it's not like the team doesn't see dysfunction at the top. They're all sitting back saying, what the hell are these bozos doing? Not you. And not you two.
And if you go to a firm that struggle with a partnership, you're right. Every employee knows who's the bozo.
They all know it. They all talk about it. It's like, it's the undercurrent that no one really addresses in a public forum, but behind the scenes, that's the talk. It really is. I think you owe it to them to just deal with it, because everyone. Anyway, Dave.
Jay and I would not know what it would be like to be in a partnership where we're not communicating, because that's all. And I know if somebody's going to listen to this and say, "Yeah, I've got a partner I just don't talk to, or I don't talk to enough, or I don't talk about my problems." I mean, he and I will no. That's just been a consistent theme, right? If something on his mind is something on my mind about the company, about whatever, it's a long text, it's a phone call, it's let's go have a drink. That's always been there, which again has made why this works. If he doesn't like something that I'm doing to him, there's always going to be communication between the two of us at any hour. It doesn't matter. And that, knowing that that's just not, there's nothing he and I are going to fear. Oh shit, I don't want to talk to Jay about that. No, but and it would suck if that exists. But there's no way in hell that doesn't exist in some partnerships. Of course it does. I'm uncomfortable talking to him about that. Jay and I would have to think really hard about what we would be uncomfortable to talk to each other about. Business-wise, personal-wise, that openness. And you say about the team knows if there's any friction. Of course, there's been times him and I will argue on the floor about whatever. And they're like, oh God, mom and dad are arguing again. And of course, he likes to say that I'm the mom, which is fine. I don't mind.
It does not need to be said.
I don't mind being the mom. But we also don't want that, right? We don't want them seeing friction between the two of us, because he and I forget. I mentioned it before. He and I can quickly forget that we are the owners. We are the bosses because we're on the floor.
Yeah.
I
mean, it's probably what makes it's a good and bad thing. It's a good thing because that's what, creates an environment of transparency with the folks on the floor. Like Dave was talking about that earlier. I'm the AE and you're the recruiter or whatever. So we don't walk around with the owner hat on, even though it's on, we just, right. The way we can communicate with each other, the things we could say, a little nod of an eyeball. I mean, we could change the attitude of an entire room by just how we look, what's on our face. We're both animated cats. So people could, tell we're in a good mood, a bad mood. And we forget that constantly, which again, like I said, I think there's more good to that than bad, because we're not walking around like, owner Jack and, what are you doing? What did you do for me today? But if we don't consciously think about it, we could be like, I probably should have left my scowly face at home because, now everyone's like, what am I upset about? Right. And they think it could be something that they did. Meanwhile, I'm mad because I had to chase the dog for an hour this morning. They just don't quite know, and that's the thing, like Dave and I can communicate and it feels like we're arguing or fighting, but it's how we talk, you know what I mean? It's like, dudes have been talking to each other for years and years and years. It's just how we communicate. And I think part of that is explaining to the staff, like, this is not a fist fight. We're not rolling around on the ground punching each other. It's just, this is what we do. And there's a style, just like anything else. I mean, people create, you have it, husbands and wives have it and friends have it. There's a certain style with how you communicate. And we've got that same kind of thing. There's a rhythm to it. But if you're not used to it, you think it's like the end of the world. You know what I mean? But but there is a rhythm to communication, and we've got this established that allows us to be like, I'll do a thing. He won't like it. I'll be like, all right, 12 hours, we'll revisit. He'll change. You know what I mean? And then we do, and it's an email, usually after he's in the shower, because I was in the shower today thinking about it, and then we talk about it. And we do it. So there's a rhythm. We know what's going to happen. It's just, we know it. No one else does. You know what I mean? So it can get a little, intimidating if you're not on the inside of that.
One more thing is, I think, you said it can be a good thing, it can be a bad thing. You guys have a unique way of letting people in. It's easy to feel comfortable around you guys. Maybe too easy at times, right? Does that ever burn you? Is it tough to toggle back and forth between, I know you're really comfortable, but I'm pissed off at you right now. You know what I mean?
Yeah, because Jay and I will instantly say we're friends and peers first and then bosses second, which is not great. But it helps them. It helps a lot. But then for those tough conversations, it makes it more difficult to sit down and say, okay, I know we work right next to each other. We're working this, but we got to talk about why you've been sucking lately. And that's a very difficult conversation to have with somebody you've been working with on a peer level for as long as you have. So,
but I do think you can toggle it though, because I think of it in terms of friends, right? So I've got friends that we're on the same level, but if they're screwing up, I'm going to call them out on it. Right. So, and then I'm going to have that conversation with them. Like, dude, this is not good. This behavior is going to lead to this and this. I'm not just going to let it slide because he's a buddy. You know what I mean? And so it's the same type of thing. So I think the toggle is there. I think you just say, look, these are what the expectations are. And again, and it's easy. We lay them out. We tell them what they need to do. If they're not doing it, we talk about why they're not doing it. So I don't think that any of them for a second don't think we're the boss. Right? They know that at the end of the day, they've got things they're going to do. And if we're not happy, but I also don't think any of them think that, we're doing some devious thing behind the scenes that, is going to catch what we're trying to catch,
right.
Trying to catch him doing something bad, and I think you can toggle it back. Cause the way we do it now, I mean, we're not perfect. We've got every day we're trying to be better at it. It's a hard thing, especially having existed for a long time in the business. And we've evolved, but we still need to evolve more every day or we're going to fall behind. But as long as we respect them, they respect us, as long as we're open with them in terms of how we feel about how they're doing and this and that, most of the rest of it will take care of itself.
Yeah. I mean, and I sit here and I'm listening to you. I'm like, wow, you guys are the same inside and outside of work. to me. I mean, you cannot help but to be yourselves. There's not a political bone in either of your bodies. You know what I mean? Whatever you're feeling is coming out. You know,
Yeah, right.
whether it's good or not, it's
Right.
there. And I think there's something really honest and refreshing about that. You know, and
Precious.
again, I don't think it's the norm.
Yeah.
So, all right, guys. Well, I'm getting bored. I think. I mean, I don't know what else to ask you.
You're getting bored. I've been bored the whole time.
Yeah,
If anybody listened to this long, then they should be checked. They should.
Well,
Yeah.
I'm going to edit. I'd say 75% of it right now. Right out. Now, I'll give it a listen and I'll see where it goes. But let's yeah. And if it sounds like crap, I'll just delete it. But I think it's good. I think there's enough. Yeah.
It's very good. Good. Excellent.
Yeah, it was good. It was good. Yeah.
All right,
I like
guys. All right, Jay. Get
I like
that. That cat really made me uncomfortable. All right, listen. I'm gonna do a formal. I'm just gonna do a formal exit, but don't hang up. So, all right, guys. Thanks for your time. What kind of cat is that, by the way?
Angry.
It's a vicious animal.
All right,
It's
so
like a
Jay,
calico.
Dave,
Calico
thanks
cat.
for your time. Calico Cat, thanks for your time, guys. I appreciated the conversation. We'll do it again.
Thanks, David.
All right.
Thank you.
All right. So stay on. Literally, I've never seen a bald eagle. Like I'm like, there's two in my town that I keep hearing. It just right over. Thing's massive.
I saw the first one in Auburn during last summer, and I've never seen one either. They're huge. They're
Yes.
huge.
Yeah. What's that military plane? The black one that looks like a bat.
The stealth.
Yeah, that's what it looked
Stealth
like.
bomber.
Just a stealth bomber going over my house.
The wingspan on those things are huge. It's fantastic.
Oh, it's awesome. All right, so I'll give this a listen. There's some scratchiness from my microphone I was picking up. I'll see how it sounds. I'll cut it down. I'll share it with you guys. And if it's good enough, we'll let it loose.
And and this could be a video too.
If you want it to be.
I don't give a shit. I would have put on a tie.
No, that's why I want it to be like
I
this.
don't video it. I don't give a shit.
But the truth is that nobody really watches YouTube. I don't promote it. I don't even know how to be honest with you, other than
You know who would watch it on YouTube? My parents.
All right. Well,
Be proud to see Jay and I talking to you. What are you, shit, man?
Right. Because, well, we'd have to like tune it up for him. Go to the house and click the link. You know what I mean?
Yeah, right, I'd have to show them how to watch it.
Then Mr. and Mrs. Kamel, if you are watching this, you're going to see from beginning to end with no edits. So
Like my father, like my father needs to see Jay. My father sees Jay enough, so yeah. But that would that's who would watch it on video.
All right. Well, then
Yeah.
we'll put it up there for
I
him.
thought it was good content. Was that how you wanted to go, Dave? I mean, was that what you thought? Yeah, you,
Dave.
Toronto. Yeah.
Yeah. I mean, I just want it to be casual. I think it's a fine line between keeping it flowing and organic and then not getting off on tangents.
Yeah.
So I think that's the one thing we probably got off on a couple of tangents, but that's on me. But overall,
Jay and I did a good job. I wanted to make sure the team, if the team was going to hear this, I wanted to make sure they heard the good things about them.